The Voratian assembly chamber was a place of profound, ancient stillness. Its walls were carved from star cores, its light drawn from captured nebulae, and its deliberations moved with the speed of tectonic plates. Ambassador Kale, representing the Voratian triad, observed the human delegate, Ilara Vance, with an expression that might have been carved from granite patience, if granite could feel a mild, parental exasperation. The Voratians were old, older than most galaxies had stars. They planned on timescales that made geological eras look like fleeting moments. Their society was the epitome of stability, their progress a slow, deliberate, inevitable unfolding. Humans, by contrast, were a spark, a flash in the pan of cosmic history. They innovated with bewildering speed, restructured their societies with every passing generation, and spoke of 5-year plans with a seriousness the Voratians found almost comically quaint. The prevailing Voratian view of humanity was as painfully short-sighted planners. Full of vibrant energy, yes, but utterly lacking the long view, destined to burn out or self-destruct long before achieving true cosmic significance. Ambassador Vance, Kale intoned, his voice a resonant hum that seemed to vibrate from the very stones of the chamber. Your proposal for the rapid terraforming initiative of the Kepler system is ambitious. You project completion within 2 standard Earth decades. Ilara Vance, a woman whose ancestors had probably been considered impatient by their own kind, nodded crisply. That's the goal, Ambassador Kale. With concurrent deployment of atmosphere processors, tailored extremophile bioseeding, and orbital mirror arrays for accelerated solar gain, we believe it's achievable. We're even fast-tracking a new generation of self-replicating construction drones. A faint ripple, perhaps of amusement, perhaps of indigestion, passed through the assembled Voratian delegates. 2 decades. They were still in the preliminary environmental impact assessment phase for diverting a minor asteroid belt, a project initiated 12 centuries ago. Such haste, Kale observed, his multifaceted eyes blinking slowly. Consider, Ambassador Vance, the unforeseen ecological consequences, the potential for cascading systemic failure. The Voratian way dictates millennia of observation, centuries of modeling, before even the smallest planetary adjustment is contemplated. With respect, Ambassador, Ilara countered, trying to keep the edge from her voice. While humanity values foresight, we also believe in proactive problem-solving. Waiting millennia for perfect data can mean missing the window of opportunity entirely. Sometimes you need to act, adapt, and iterate. Iteration, Kale repeated, as if tasting a strange and unpalatable fruit. An admission of imperfect initial planning. The Voratian way strives for perfection from inception, however long that inception may take. The conversation, like many before it, highlighted the fundamental chasm between Voratian and human temporal perception. Humans saw the Voratians as ponderous, almost stagnant. Voratians saw humans as frantic, unstable, and dangerously impulsive, useful for quickly developing niche technologies, perhaps, or for dealing with sudden, short-lived crises that the Voratians wouldn't even register on their planning cycles, but not for guiding the galaxy's long-term destiny. The Great Dimming, as it would later be known, began not with a bang, but with a whisper, a subtle, almost imperceptible decrease in the energy output of stars across the galaxy. So faint was the change that for decades, then centuries, only the most sensitive, long-term astronomical observatories even registered it as a statistical anomaly rather than instrument drift. The Voratians, with their eons of meticulous stellar cartography and their deep space observatories that had monitored some stars since before humanity's sun had even condensed, were the first to confirm its reality. Their Millennial Watch program, designed to detect changes on cosmic timescales, flagged a consistent, galaxy-wide trend. Stars were very slowly losing their luminosity. The rate was infinitesimal on a human lifespan, but on a Voratian timescale, it was an undeniable, creeping progression towards a colder, darker universe. Ambassador Kale presented the findings to the Galactic Concord, a body that included hundreds of species with lifespans ranging from mere decades to near immortality. The data is unequivocal, he stated, his voice somber. Across all observed sectors, stellar energy output is diminishing at a rate of approximately 0.001% per standard century. The projected implications over millennia are severe. A murmur ran through the Concorde. For species like the ephemeral mayflies of Xylos, who lived only a single season, or even humans, the immediate impact was negligible. Their suns wouldn't noticeably dim in their lifetimes or even their children's lifetimes. But for the Voratians, who planned for eternity, and for other long-lived races, it was a death knell sounding from the distant future. The Voratian Assembly has initiated several long-term research projects, Kale continued. We are modeling stellar dynamics to understand the underlying cause. We are exploring generational arc ship designs for eventual galactic evacuation, should it prove necessary. Our preliminary timeline for effective countermeasures or migration strategies is on the order of 50 to 100,000 standard years. 50,000 years. Ilara Vance, attending the Concorde as Earth's representative, felt a chill that had nothing to do with the chamber's temperature. While her own sun wouldn't fade significantly for eons, the idea of a dying galaxy, even in the far-flung future, was profoundly unsettling. But 50,000 years to start doing something. Ambassador Kale, Ilara spoke up, her voice clear in the suddenly quiet hall. With respect, if the trend is already measurable, waiting tens of millennia seems reactive. Are there no more immediate avenues of research or action being considered? Kale turned his ancient gaze upon her. Ambassador Vance, this is a cosmic process. It cannot be rushed. Hasty, ill-considered interventions could accelerate the decline or trigger even greater catastrophes. The Voratian way is one of caution and deliberation. Over the next few Earth years, the Great Dimming became a topic of academic debate among shorter-lived species, a problem for the distant future. Human scientists confirmed the Voratian data, though the public largely shrugged it off. Their immediate concerns were planetary politics, climate change mitigation on their own world, and the next generation of faster-than-light drives. The slow fading of distant stars was too abstract, too far removed. But for a few human scientists, restless innovators like Dr. Aris Thorne, no relation to the xenoarchaeologist, this one was a maverick astrophysicist, the dimming was an irresistible challenge. Waiting is not a strategy, it's a symptom of imaginative failure, Thorne was fond of saying to his small, underfunded team at the Sol Future Institute. While the Voratians meticulously gathered data and began drawing up plans for colossal, slow-moving Dyson swarms that might take 10,000 years to construct around a single star, Thorne and his team were thinking differently. They weren't planning for a slow decline. They were looking for a fix, a fast one. The models suggest a quantum dampening effect on fusion processes, Thorne explained to his colleagues, hunched over a holographic display showing complex stellar equations. Lena Hansen, a brilliant but notoriously impatient engineer who had joined Thorne's team after finding traditional corporate R&D too slow, tapped her stylus. So something is literally putting the brakes on stellar fusion, galaxy-wide? Lena asked. What could do that? Exotic particles, a shift in fundamental constants. Unknown, Thorne admitted. The Voratians are still trying to identify the what. We need to focus on the how to undo it. Or, if we can't undo it, how to outrun it or bypass it. Their initial proposals, presented to the wider human scientific community, and then, tentatively, to the Galactic Concorde's scientific forums, were met with skepticism, bordering on ridicule from the elder races. Stellar rejuvenation via targeted graviton pulses, one Voratian scholar had commented during a disastrous Holo conference. Childish fantasy. The energies required would be astronomical, the control mechanisms beyond anything conceivable. You risk destabilizing the star entirely. Controlled stellar nurseries using artificial black holes as fusion catalysts, another elder race delegate had scoffed. The sheer hubris. You speak of manipulating forces that shape the universe with less understanding than a hatchling has of orbital mechanics. Mass intergalactic exodus using chained Alcubierre bubbles. Ilara Vance had tried to present that one herself, hoping her diplomatic skills could soften the blow. The Voratian response had been a stony silence, which was somehow worse than derision. They simply couldn't comprehend planning for such a radical, galaxy-abandoning endeavor on a timescale shorter than the lifespan of a small moon. Humanity's short-sighted planning was once again on display. They weren't thinking about adapting over millennia. They were thinking about solving the problem now or building lifeboats that could leave this century. Their rapid technological advancement, usually seen as erratic and unstable, suddenly found a problem worthy of its frantic pace. The Voratians, meanwhile, continued their deliberate work. They established new long-term observatories. They formed committees to debate the ethical implications of potential future geoengineering projects. Their 50,000-year plan was proceeding impeccably on schedule. Then the dimming accelerated. It wasn't a sudden surge, but a noticeable quickening of the decline. The 0.001% per century became 0.01%, then 0.05%. Stars on the galactic fringe began to noticeably cool and redden, far ahead of Voratian projections. Panic, a rare and deeply unsettling emotion for the elder races, began to set in. Their millennia-long plans were suddenly looking terrifyingly inadequate. The universe wasn't waiting for them. The dampening field, or whatever it is intensifying, Thorne announced grimly to a hastily convened emergency session of human scientists. At this new rate, significant portions of the galaxy will become uninhabitable within centuries, not millennia. Forget 50,000 years. We have maybe 500 tops before things get dire for many worlds, including our own. The news hit the galactic concord like a meteor. The Voratians were stunned. Their meticulous models, their careful projections, were rendered obsolete overnight. Their slow, deliberate approach, their greatest strength, had become their critical weakness in the face of a rapidly escalating crisis. Ambassador Kale, his ancient composure visibly shaken, addressed the concord. The Voratian Assembly acknowledges the unforeseen acceleration of the dimming. Our current contingency timelines are insufficient. He paused, a silence stretching across the vast chamber. We are open to re-evaluating all proposed solutions, including those previously deemed precipitate. All eyes, metaphorically, turned to humanity. Suddenly, the painfully short-sighted planners were the only ones whose plans operated on a timescale that might actually matter. Their childish fantasies and hubristic schemes were now the galaxy's desperate long shots. Ilara Vance found herself at the center of a whirlwind. Voratian engineers, ancient beings who had forgotten more science than humanity had ever known, were now humbly asking Dr. Thorne to explain his unstable theories on graviton-induced stellar relighting. Krill logicians, masters of intricate planning, were offering their processing power to model humanity's reckless, interstellar exodus concepts. Even the Kaithrak, usually focused on military matters, were asking if human rapid prototyping could develop radiation shielding for the accelerated dimming. Your rapid iteration, your ability to conceive and prototype radical solutions in mere years, Ambassador Kale confessed to Ilara in a private meeting, his voice heavy with a dawning, painful understanding. We viewed it as a flaw, a sign of instability. We now see it may be your greatest strength. You do not fear to discard a failing idea and try another. We plan for so long, commit so deeply, that changing course is like trying to divert a rogue planet. Dr. Thorne's team, once a fringe group, became the nucleus of a massive, multi-species effort. The Sol Future Institute swelled with alien scientists, engineers, and resources. The Stellar Rejuvenation Project, once derided, was now Project Lifelight, the galaxy's top priority. They didn't have millennia. They had decades, maybe a century, to crack it. The challenges were immense. The energies involved were colossal. But human ingenuity, fueled by desperation and now backed by the resources and knowledge of ancient races, began to make breakthroughs at a speed that astounded even the humans themselves. Lena Hansen, leading the engineering teams, was in her element, improvising, adapting, and pushing the boundaries of known physics on a weekly basis. They focused first on smaller, relatively stable red dwarf stars, easier to manipulate. Early experiments were disastrous. One star was snuffed out entirely. Another went briefly nova. But with each failure, they learned, adapted, iterated, that human word the Voratians were beginning to understand. Meanwhile, other human-led initiatives surged forward. The Mass Intergalactic Exodus Plan, Project Far Reach, began constructing vast, modular colony ships, designed not for millennia of slow travel, but for relatively quick, multi-decade sprints between galaxies using experimental drive systems that human scientists had been tinkering with just because. The Voratians, whose own arc designs were still largely theoretical, watched in bewildered awe as humans began welding together city-sized ships in orbital drydocks. It was chaotic, it was messy, it was full of dead ends and near catastrophes, but it was fast. Humanity's societal structure, always in flux, proved ideal for rapid mobilization. New research consortia formed and dissolved, companies retooled their entire production lines overnight, and global human efforts focused with a singular, desperate intensity they rarely achieved in peacetime. The Voratians and other elder races contributed their vast knowledge bases, their refined manufacturing techniques, their deep understanding of fundamental forces. But it was human short-sightedness, their ability to focus on the immediate, terrifying crisis and pour all their energy into solutions now, that drove the pace. They weren't planning for the next ice age. They were trying to stop the blizzard that was already howling at the door. Years turned into decades. The dimming continued, but its effects were now being actively fought. The first successful stellar rejuvenation flickered a dying red dwarf back to a healthy orange, a beacon of hope in a darkening sector. The techniques were refined, scaled up. It wasn't a permanent fix for the underlying cause of the dimming, but it bought time, centuries of it. Project Far Reach launched its first flotilla, a brave, desperate gamble carrying millions of souls towards the Andromeda galaxy. Their journey would be perilous, their destination uncertain, but it was a choice, an action in the face of cosmic despair. The Voratians watched and learned. They began to incorporate agile responsiveness, a human term, into their own planning. They started smaller, more adaptable projects. They even began to iterate. Ambassador Kale, in a moment of surprising candor, admitted to Ilara Vance that the Voratian Assembly had, for the first time in its recorded history, abandoned a 10,000-year plan less than a millennium into its execution, in favor of a more human-scaled approach. The galaxy wasn't saved, not entirely. The Great Dimming remained a profound cosmic mystery, a long-term threat, but humanity had given it a bloody nose. They had bought the universe precious time, perhaps enough for the slower, deeper wisdom of the elder races to eventually find a permanent solution, now aided by humanity's restless innovation. The term painfully short-sighted planners was officially and respectfully retired. Humans were now known, with a mixture of awe and slight trepidation, as adaptive foresight catalysts. Their ability to react to immediate crisis with radical, galaxy-shaking innovation was no longer seen as a symptom of immaturity, but as a vital, potent force. Ilara Vance stood with Ambassador Kale on the observation deck of a new joint human-Voratian research station orbiting a newly rejuvenated star. The star burned brightly, a testament to what could be achieved when ancient wisdom and youthful urgency combined. "We planned for millennia," Kale said, his voice holding a new note of humility. "We thought your focus on years, on decades, was a profound weakness. We failed to see that sometimes the future arrives far faster than anticipated, and it is those who can react to today's crisis who will shape tomorrow's millennia." Ilara smiled. "We're still working on the long view, Ambassador, but sometimes you have to save the day before you can plan for the eon." The Voratians and the galaxy had learned that short-sightedness, when backed by courage, ingenuity, and a refusal to accept defeat, could be the most powerful form of foresight of all, especially when the stars themselves began to die and time was a luxury no one could afford. Humanity, the frantic, brilliant children of a young star, had shown the old ones how to race against the dying of the light.